Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tata Steel 2024. This is the first major chess event of the calendar year. And despite Magnus Carlsen not playing, Fabiano Caruana not playing, and Hikaru Nakamura not playing, the top 3 rated chess players in the world are not participating in this event in the first time in, I don't know, a decade. This event is really, really fun. And I think it's showing that we don't always need the top names in the world to participate. We've got the young generation, we have the older generation, we have the master section, we have the challenger section, we have Ding Liren, we have Yan Nepomniachtchi, Anish Giri, Praggnanandhaa, Gukesh, Hans Niemann over there in the challengers. We've got a great field, and today we are featuring a massive game between Praggnanandhaa and Ding Liren, the world champion. Once again, we have an opportunity for Pragg to prove that he is elite on the world stage. There's a couple of Indian youngsters like Pragg and Gukesh who have risen to this level, but will they stay consistent enough to break past 2730, 2740, 2750 into that ultra elite near 2800 ELO chess? Ding Liren coming off a very convincing win where he beat Gukesh with black, showing once again, Gukesh, you have to wait to get to this level. In this game, he opens with e4. Now, Ding Liren, by the way, is a lifelong d4, c4 kind of guy. He goes for e4. We have a Spanish, which at this level is very, very common. a6. Was that clear? Castles, b5, bishop b3, and now we have c3. All of this has been played before. Obviously, I mean, it's a Spanish. D3 is already a major commitment. If there's anything you know about the Spanish, you know that, white likes to castle here. And we can get a mainline Spanish with the bishop going to e7, castles. Or we can get an open Spanish where after castles, black takes on e4. But Ding Liren says d3, and let's have a closed game. All right, we're going to have a long closed maneuvering game. I'm going to put my rook in e1. I'll rotate my knight to f1, then to g3. That's what I want. There it goes. Praggnanandhaa also making kind of improving moves, plays knight e7. Maybe he'll play c6 and d5 or c5 and then put the knight on g6. And now Ding plays a4. Ding still in his prep. Pragg not. All right, Pragg not in his prep. Clearly, Ding is asking some questions here about Pragg's queenside. Pragg plays rook b8 to get the rook off the a file so that ab is now possible. Ding plays h3. Ding still in his prep, by the way. As you can tell from the time management, still in his prep. Pragg plays knight g6. Ding plays knight g3. Ding still in his prep. Still in his home analysis. Pragg plays c5. Pragg now down 26 minutes on the clock in the opening. All right. Idea to expand here. We'll see what he's going to do with his bishop. It's a very close game, so there's tons of pawn breaks. There's a lot of piece maneuvering that can happen. Neither guy can use the h-file to bring in a knight. Like, they would both love to put a knight in f5. Ding plays bishop e3. So he spends a little bit of time here. He plays bishop e3. Now, what's interesting is that that's not the best move. And as you can see, suddenly black's position comes to life. This might have been a bluff by Ding to continue playing fast. The engine here gives AB first. Then, of course, if bishop e3, the same idea. But the computer after c5 wants the bishop to go to d2 in basically every line. And then if bishop d2 and black still plays c4, it doesn't work because you're not going to get to trade the bishop. Ding plays here, and now Pragg plays c4, so he spends another 13 minutes. He is now down 36 minutes on the clock in the opening, but it's classical chess. So he still has another 65 minutes to go, and he's going to clarify the position. Ding takes on b6 instantly. Pragg takes with the rook. Ding plays bishop a2. So now Ding spends 11 minutes, and I think it's quite clear that despite getting an advantage of preparation in the opening, meaning you didn't get an advantage on the board, but you got to a playable position, I think this might have been a little bit of a bluff by Ding. I don't know if it was a bluff or just, he wanted to continue to play fast and keep the pressure on his opponent, but this is a great move, which guarantees the opening of the position, and Pragg correctly evaluates that after all of this is said and done, he's doing very well. For example, Ding can play pawn takes, bishop takes, but the rook getting to b2 is actually very nice for black. He has good pressure, the c3 pawn is weak, and black is microscopically better, and probably the game will just end in a draw, but rook b6, and Ding does it like this, and now Pragg just plays queen c7, and yeah, Ding's pieces are a little bit suspicious, which is why, he tries to play bishop b1, he tries to kind of zigzag out of the way, and Pragg just plays very simply. He plays takes, And he's the first one to get a knight on f4, so he does. He doesn't care that he's down 37 minutes. Ding is using his time advantage, and the position is in the balance, but he's playing in a slightly dismissive way of Prague. Like, he's saying, all right, you want my bishop, so come and take it. Come and take my bishop, when the best move very well could be bishop f1. It very well could just be moving the bishop out of the way, and then playing, like, queen d2, and slowly maneuvering and getting the knight out. But Ding plays knight e2, and Prague's like, well, okay, I'll take your bishop. I don't know why you're giving it to me so easily. Bishop e6, so now I'd like to play bishop c4. Now, if all these pawns get traded, it will just be a draw. All right? And in general, in these e4, e5 games, it's difficult to prove an advantage, like, you know, so violently. I mean, these positions don't end in, like, checkmates. Knight g3, b4. Prague is just doing what he can. He's trying to fight against the weakness. Now, if Prague can get an endgame where he has 5-on-4, of course he's going to be in good shape. And we're kind of heading there. Like, who's going to guard this pawn? Prague's got a bishop versus a knight, which is considered a slight advantage in an endgame. And he has good pressure on the b-pawn. Ding goes here, trying to give away the pawn for the pawn. Prague goes back, defends himself. Queen a3, Prague doubles up. And I got news for you. It's just a matter of time until Ding completely can't guard his b-pawn. And that's exactly what Prague does. He plays knight e8, and suddenly he's like, Ding, you play too fast. I'm down 50 minutes. But, you're not going to get your pawn. And rook b3. And he just applies as much pressure as possible, and he just wins the pawn. Wins the pawn, and we go to this endgame. Ding goes here. Prague goes g6. Ding goes here. Prague blocks the bishop, blocks the rook's activity, and they both move their h-pawns. Now, again, Stockfish can still draw this, but look how fast Ding is playing. Ding plays f3. Prague doesn't wait. He simplifies the game and says, you know what? I'll take my chances in this bishop versus knight 5-on-4. Again, the meta here is always going to be a draw. It's always going to be a draw. It's going to be a draw because at the end of the day, if black is left with one pawn versus nothing, I can sack my knight for it. Knight versus knight and bishop, despite being a full piece down, is a draw. You can't beat me with bishop knight if I have a knight. It's not possible. I mean, I'm assuming I'm not going to lose my knight, but it's just not possible. So the meta of this endgame should basically always be a draw. The only way really to win this would be to trade the right way and create an imbalance where it's not just like a pawn. Like, you know, you might need me to take that way. So that way you get a pass pawn. If you can get a pass pawn and win a pawn for a knight, you win as long as there's pawns on the board. So Prague now needs a consolidation phase, right? He keeps the bishop there and he takes. He goes to a knight endgame. Ding, again, might have rushed with knight d5. He might have needed to play g4. He might have needed to isolate a pawn because getting a pass pawn would actually help Ding for his counterplay. But he goes knight d5 and he probably just doesn't expect. Prague takes. And it's a very tough decision. Ding now goes here. Now look at Ding. Look at his time management. He spends 27 minutes. He spends all his time is spent by the time he gets there. Right? Now he got a little extra time here. I think he got some bonus time on move 40, but he spent so much time and he decides to do it this way. And now Prague just has to win a knight endgame, which is not easy. I mean, it's probably a draw. Ding tries to create some counterplay and we get this endgame. It's a 3-on-2. It's likely just a draw with best play. But Ding had to go here. And then if knight e4, this is the defensive setup, and maybe he just dances around with his horse. But of course, you got winning chances, but you have knight e3. King goes back. It's impossible to play knight d6, knight e3. And this is the defensive setup, apparently, where white has the best chances. But Ding, instead of that, plays king e2. Now the knight comes to e4, and now he goes knight f1. Now, the difference is that in this position, there's knight takes pawn. It's a defensive illusion. And then f4, and then you lose this king and pawn endgame. You lose because the pawn is a decoy. By the time you go anywhere, I will win this pawn or I'll push this. Can't rush though, you can't rush! Now it's a draw, but you would play king e5, you'd play king f4, you would slowly win the pawn, and then you would be winning. Yeah, so Ding, even on move 48, apparently could have gotten a defensive setup and maybe drawn. And instead he goes here, and he's just losing. Like, Prague just marches the king into the position, and he just completely, from start to finish, outclasses the current world champion and wins. That was a shocking game. It was a shocking game for several reasons. How easy Prague made it look. And just like Ding blitzed out the first 14 moves of the game. And then from here, it was like, wait, was that his prep? Because Prog played a great move, instigating stuff on the queen side. And then it was just like a series of inaccurate decisions. He didn't want to keep his bishop. He gave away the bishop. Prog just masterful technique, put pressure on this pawn, was very patient, put his knight on a passive square to defend himself, and then just like, I mean, he was like, all right, I guess I'm going to create winning chances from this position. And he did. I mean, he just went to a knight endgame where he had some chances, he had some little chances, and it's just a shocking game. Like, the back and forth of that game to this game, and Prog just beats the world champ. Second time in a row in Tata Steel in round 4 with black. Last year, he beat Ding round 4 with black. And also with this win, Prog is now officially the highest rated Indian chess player, which I don't think he's ever held. I think it's always been Gukesh, but Prog is now officially, well, unofficially in the rankings, he is the highest rated Indian chess player. So that is huge. Now we go to a nice little Hans Niemann game. Hans Niemann playing against Divya Deshmukh, who yesterday defeated Jaime Santos Latasa 2600. Her third win against the 2600. I saw this stat on socials. There's an account that follows women's chess. I believe it's called @OnTheQueenside, which makes sense, Queenside. Which said it was the third win that she had against the 2600 GM in the last 3 months. I will tell you, I've had 0, so, you know, 3 more than me. Also, nobody watching this has had one either. So we've all got 0. Hans Niemann trying to, I mean, he's a 270-point favorite in this game, so he's going to try to get it done. He plays in Italian, played with D3. All these positions look the same. Like, look, the opening in this game, right? Like, knight F1, like this position and this position, right? I mean, like, or this position, like, they look so similar. Isn't that fascinating? Like, Prog played A6, B5. Divya has not played A6, B5. The bishop just went there. It was just interesting how these positions, the structure is so fascinatingly identical, right? Knight E3. Now Divya gives up the bishop for the knight, something that we haven't seen in a while. Also, Prog maneuvered his knight that way. Divya maneuvers her knight that way. Slightly different, right? And now Hans takes on C6, creates an opposite colored bishop position, and tries to take as much central space as possible. The way black can fight back here is there's many ways. You can be solid. You can also give white the center, but try to fire away. Try to fire away with the, like this, queen G6, create light squared attacking possibilities. But the computer always evaluates the position as a touch better for white. But black is very solid. So D4, but instead of playing open, she plays solid. She plays F6. A lot of pawns on dark squares, considering she has just traded off a dark square bishop. Hans plays B3 and C4. Taking a little bit of free real estate over there. And the idea, let's say black plays like king H8, the idea actually could be C5, which is very nasty, at which point you restrict black's knight to D7, or you go to an endgame where this is just awful. I mean, too many weaknesses. C5 under pressure, A6. And so he plays like this and makes Divya play C5. Now Hans plays a nice idea. Plays knight D2. Opposite colored bishops benefit the attacking player. F4, and it's going to be bad news. He's going to get a lot of traction going on this attack while this knight is sort of stuck. Can't get into the game. Rook E7, F5, pushes the bishop back. There's the queen. There's no checkmate yet, but it's a matter of time. The knight is transferred in. Much better on G3 than where it was, defending. Black has no play. Black has no play. Black can't do anything with any of her pawns. She plays knight D7, trying to plug the center. The knight arrives on H5. The rook is coming. This rook is on the way as well, and it's just a really brutal position. Queen H4, poking at G7, poking at F6. Divya down to 30, not 30, Hans is 38 minutes. Divya has 59 seconds, and it's just like a matter of time. If you're going to reposition, you're going to get in, bishop D2, knight D5. There's a sacrifice somewhere. It's just a matter of time. Can Hans find his way in? Maybe not. Whoa. Maneuvering, and waiting, but where's the win? Where's the win? The advantage is blossoming, but where's the win? Knight H5. There it is. There it is. When you are severely restricted for space, something is always going to happen. Now, you could actually go back and say maybe Divya should not have played C6. Like, maybe she should have just said, you know what? Knight on D5 is very annoying, but maybe just rook D7. Maybe playing C6 actually was a major mistake. Because this move makes that weak. It takes away the knight, but makes that very weak. And maybe that's just it. Like, maybe black just, because of the new weakness on D6, has to play this very passive defense. and now knight takes f6. She tries to go for some counterplay, but the black position is falling apart. So fascinating. Like maybe the attack was very deceiving, and actually here, black was not getting mated. It was just unstoppable force meets immovable object, but that's chess. Sometimes you play something and it doesn't work, and when it's all said and done, the attack is simply too strong. Bishop takes g7, rook d6, and black resigns here because she is going to lose all the pawns, or she's going to get checkmated. Both of those are bad. Hans wins, and he's actually in first place. I will show you some more games. I've got this game. Anton Karabov popped off today, and then we're gonna, I mean, my man Anish Giri is on one. He is on one in Tata Steel. Wei Yi plays e4. Parham Maghsoodloo has not won a game. He is half out of 3. He goes for a Caro Kann. We have e5, bishop f5. We have the main line of the Caro Kann, and we have this very solid, not passive, short variation with bishop e2 and castles. Back in the day, they used to play c5 and queen b6. Now they play a bit more of a maneuvering way. c5 now, dc. This has been played many, many times. So now Wei Yi plays bishop g5, gets rid of the dark squared bishops, plays knight a3. He knows that his opponent wants to take this pawn, but he can't take it right away because the knight is going to go to b5. So he castles, and now c4. Basically, Wei Yi is saying, all right, you can take my pawn. I know you want it. I'm going to try to open up your queen side and create some attack. But black is fine. Black equalized. Black did his job. Black is minus 0.1 from the opening. Caro Kann OP. You know, there's like this weird misconception. Like I always see stuff like this on Reddit or YouTube comments. It's where people, it's like Dunning-Kruger. Is that like, I forgot what exactly it means, but it's like this weird thing where you think you're the smartest person in the room. All right? That might not be, that's not the definition of Dunning-Kruger. I'm just saying I see these things where people are like, well, you know, I don't want to learn the Caro Kann because at top level, nobody plays it, right? Yes, the meta at top level is these e4, e5 games that you see all the time, but like, here's an example of a Caro Kann game where Parham knew his stuff and he equalized. I mean, he got a very pleasant position from the opening, and now it's about, you got to play chess, right? Speaking of you got to play chess, rook d8, knight b5, and instead of allowing the knight in, Parham said, he could have played knight a6. He says, go ahead, trap my rook. Look at that. The rook is trapped. Parham gets his own rook trapped, plays dc, opens up an attack on Wei Yi's queen, queen c1, knight takes e5. The rook has to be taken now. You got no choice. There it goes. Knight c6. Parham says, okay, I got a knight, I got 2 pawns. I got 2 pawns extra, right? I got 7 pawns, you got 5, Wei Yi. I'm going to get your knight. Wei Yi takes. Queen c3, rook a. This is the position. Now, in a perfect world, Parham is going to get his pawns down here. In a perfect world, Parham is going to decide which of these pieces he wants to trade for this bishop, or neither. What Wei Yi is going to do is Wei Yi is going to try to win some pawns on that side of the board, maybe trade the queens, because queens would remove a lot of winning chances for black, any checkmate chances, and then we're going to try to win an endgame. Or, tactic. Wow. Tactic. Okay, so you can't take with the queen because then I take your knight. Knight takes. b3. Can't move the knight. b5. If you want to win my knight, I'm going to get... So, Wei Yi says, I think a rook for a bishop is the right balance. I'm going to sack my bishop, win the knight. There it is. And Wei Yi says, let's play this game. Fascinating. Okay. Apparently, Stockfish wants Parham to wait. It actually doesn't want him to take yet. By taking, he now allows Wei Yi to play rook fd1, and these 6 pawns versus white's 4 are 2 extra, but it doesn't feel that way. The thing is, they don't feel that way. If this pawn was on b5, it would feel a lot more potent. Just a small example, okay? Queen c4, it's not a good move. It's not a good move, but let's just say we got queen b2, queen d5, and like rook b1 hangs a rook. Let's say we got like rook a1. This is a much better structure for black, because the pawns are together. But this is worse because the pawns cannot work together. And now Wei Yi begins an extraction process. Parham has to defend himself. Wei Yi goes here. And while black has to defend himself, the rook goes to the 7th rank. Now the evaluation is still in the balance, but Wei Yi's creating good chances for himself. His king is a little weak. f6, a5. Rook b5. Tense game. Wei Yi's got a minute. Queen h5. Parham looking for mate. Queen a4. Black's king darts out of the way, but he loses a pawn. Black's king goes to d8. It looks like there's mate all over the board, but then there's queen d7. The king goes to g6. I sack the rook and I win yours back. So rook d8, rook a7, queen c2. Oh my goodness, this is nuts. King g6, king is running around. Queen c2, king g6. We're gonna make a draw, no draw. Queen f5. Now Wei Yi goes with his pawns. Queen b1, sacrificing the queen, but it's a mate. h4. He's hunting Parham's king. King f7. What is happening in this game? Queen e3. We go to a queen trade. Finally, we can breathe. We can breathe, but white has a passed a pawn. And if white is able to get that pawn moving, I think he's going to win the game. Uh-oh. 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 He's looking for a trade of rooks. He's swarming the black king with his rooks. Parham is creating counterplay. But is it going to be quick enough? King f8. Check. Check. Is it going to be fast enough? Rook b7. You can't push because there's mate. There's mate. There's mate all over the back rank. King f8. Rook c7. We go to an endgame. But now white's pawn might be the problem. a5. Whose pawn is stronger? f5. The king comes. The king wants to go here. And also there is e4. And you cannot take, because the pawn is going to get to a7, at which point it's going to be fatal. This is nuts. This is a game of inches. g4. The king goes to d2, stopping the pawn. But black has a g pawn. But white has an a pawn. But black has a g pawn. But white has an a pawn. What is happening? King e7, a7. And that's it. Because rook c2, you cannot take. g2, my king stops the pawn. Wei Yi stops both pawns. And Parham Maksudlu goes down in a crazy back and forth game. Decided with a imbalance and pass pawns, and Parham Maksudlu has half out of 4. He's lost 3 games. Insane. Back to the challenger section we go. This was smooth like butter. Anton Karabov losing one of his first games to Salem Saleh. This was a G3 semi-slam versus the young man from France, Marc-André Maritzi. This was a closed Catalan. Took on c4, and then watch as my man Anton Karabov creates imbalance, gives up his bishop, right? Puts stuff on dark squares. Watch as his knights just dance to the dark squares. All his pawns on dark squares because he traded off his dark squared bishop. Beautiful positional game. Bringing out his queen, getting his king off that G file so there's no mate. Look at the dance of the knights. What a beautiful position. What a beautiful... Now, how are we going to win? We don't just get this and say, okay, we're winning. Queen a5... We centralize our rooks, and our opponent takes. Our opponent makes a big, clarifying decision, not allowing us to advance. We take with the pawn. To secure control of this, to get the file, knight c4 and dancing into the position, and e4. All of these different ideas. Now we come back. Marc-André tries to create counterplay because he doesn't like the positional, but now we take. We take because if he takes, we go there, and if he takes like this, he's got weak pawns. Now what? Anton Karabov is one of the most aggressive players in the world. e4, get that knight out of there. Queen c4, looking for queen d4 and an infiltration on these dark squares. The black position is too scattered. Like, look at these pieces. Black has a horrendous queen and rook. Horrendous. And now the board is opening up. Now threatened here. Of course, Karabov can play the top engine move rook g1. Rook g1 just gets the rook to safety. You play for the future. You still threaten the pawn. But he's Anton freaking Karabov. He gives up the rook. Of course he gives up the rook. Because if you take the rook, then he's going to get another pawn with check, and then he's going to take the rook over. He's going to take the bishop back. Marc-André has to go here, and now Karabov's just like, yeah, man, you really should have taken when you had the chance, because now I'm a pawn up. And it's about to be real bad. Knight f4, and the opening of that file is completely lethal. Black goes here. Knight h5. Queen, and now we threaten the... Look at how this game ends. This is so nasty. Queen b6. Completely ignoring the threat on the bishop. Because after take, if you take, I just play b7. You have these beautiful pieces. But who's stopping the pawn? Because if you go over there, I take. And then I'll just win the endgame. What a game from Karabov. He made it look so effortless. Like, Marc-André is 2572. Like, some of us could live like 4 lifetimes and not get to that rating. Myself included. I mean, just the ease of which he made this look. Just queen c2, knight e5. Look at him just planting his piece. One trade lost Marc-André the whole game. He did that, and the game was over. The game was over. Once he made that trade, and he allowed Karabov to have dark squared access, no dark squared bishop in the maneuvering game with e4 idea, it was over. And he made it look easy. Anton Karabov tied for first in the challengers section. I mean, Karabov is like higher rated and has a higher peak rating than many of the participants of the Masters. Korobov in the Masters would be cooking up a storm too, but he is cooking in the Challenger section. Speaking of another man who is in the kitchen, all right, and my man is cooking up some good stuff. It is Anish Giri. Gukesh, yesterday losing to Ding Liren, tries to create a very complex English opening. This is a sideline D3. Normally here they're playing A3, E3, or G3, not G4, although maybe. But no, G3 and E3 are the main lines. D3 is just creating a reverse Sicilian, and now G3, and now we're playing really a reverse Sicilian. It's a Sicilian dragon reversed. The knight goes back to F6. Modern games also go knight B6 very often, as well as bishop E6, bishop E7. He does this. And now Giri plays this move. Spends 8 minutes, and he does not develop the bishop to G2. Bishop G5. Wow. Why? What about H6? Oh, he was ready to take. He was ready to give up the bishop and then just, I guess, play a position like where he was going to pressure Gukesh like this on the C file. Fascinating. I mean, I love this type of, I love this Anish Giri. This man is coming to make all his opponents uncomfortable. He's kicking them under the table. He's stealing pawns off the chessboard. I mean, it's amazing stuff. Bishop G2, castles, castles. And like I said, that bishop went in to die. Take, take. That bishop knew its purpose. It was not going to be able to stand around anywhere or make itself useful. And now he's just going to pressure the queenside. A5, committal decision stopping white from playing B4. A3, committal decision trying to re-allow the move B4. Knight D4, looking to clarify matters. And pawn to C6, you'd bet your life C6 is going to be played next. Replacing the knight, stopping the pawn, blocking the bishop. Anish plays knight, he plays E3, apologies. Targets the knight, knight takes, bishop takes, C6. Completely equal position, very imbalanced. White has a majority of pawns in the center. White has a minority of pawns on the queen side. White has a knight for a bishop. White is stronger on the light squares because two of these pieces can fight on the light squares. This piece, however, is weaker than that piece on dark squares. So white might try to get a B5 going. If white can get B4, B5, white's playing for something. Queen C2, rook C1. Then if we trade, the knight is going to go there and there. Let's see if it's going to happen. Queen C2, rook D1, defending ourselves. Knight A4. We're fighting for the dark squares because they're actually completely available. Like sometimes you have a mercenary that can go and fight for the dark squares, but this is the move that will make or break the position for both sides. If Anish Giri is successfully able to implement the game plan here, he's going to be in good shape. It's also very tough to decide what to do with black. White is somehow defending himself perfectly. So what's next? B5. And now a massive question mark to the black position. We're about to get the same endgame that we had in Ding's game. Remember Prague Ding, where it was 5 versus 4, D through H versus E through H. Same exact pawns, but an extra D pawn. Look at this. It's about to be 5 versus 4, D through H. Fascinating, right? That's very interesting. The person with the extra pawn in Ding's game had the bishop. Rook takes D3. Gukesh sacrifices the rook to create bishop D3, queen D3, rook A4. And I guess his logic was opposite colored bishops, I can't lose. Not going to be able to lose this game. Massive decision. Massive. Apparently, he shouldn't have done that. Apparently, he should have played like rook A5, take. He should have just held on to this weakness for a little while. But he plays rook D3, wants to clarify matters now, and Anish trades everything down and takes. He's able to take because of the back rank. Okay? Rook A7. So, it's opposite colored bishops. It's identical level of pawns. So, who's better? Well, white. Why? Well, if you compare the quality of the bishops, right? Like, white's bishop is better than black's bishop. It's actually got a target. White's got all the pawns on the right color. Right? If this pawn was E6, G6, they agree to a draw. But this is all we got working for us. Right? Rook B5. It's actually a shockingly difficult position to play for black. Because white has a lot of threats. Queen E7. We poke at the rook. We get the rook off the 7th rank. Now we play rook B8. Rook B7. Now we won the 7th rank. Now Gukesh makes a massive decision. He trades the queens, but he breaks his structure apart. So he's still equal pawns and the queens are off. What do we know about opposite colored bishop endgames? Probably a draw. G5. He's just trying to trade. He's trying to trade as much as possible. Bishop H7. Take. But look at this is not the same structure, man. That 3 and that 3 are not the same. Check. Rook D2. The king goes to F1. H4. And guess what? Anish is still able to trade. because there is no, you can't play rook h7, rook h7, you can't take. So in this absolutely absurd position, if something like king g8 were to be played, bishop h5, and then king f8, this is apparently the way you try to draw this. You get the king over here, you play rook d6, and you stubbornly sit and wait with your atrocious doubled e-pawns. But because Gukesh does it this way, it allows Anish to get the rook to f7, you still can't take, and now he gets the pawn to h5. And now he has very, very, very big winning chances. Because black's king is stuck in the corner, and white's king can mobilize while he wins the second pawn. So Gukesh could have played king g8, rook e7, rook d6. But if he played rook d6, there is this, h6. Now you're definitely dead. So he gets this pawn up endgame. It's really a 2-pawn up endgame. Gotta be winning. Gotta be winning. And Anish Giri, I hate to say this. But Anish Giri looking like Magnus Carlsen out here. Now, Stockfish is still kind of saying this is drawable. It's still showing like this is a fortress and black's got a fortress and you can't win this. And it was saying that for a very long time. I think practically speaking, this is extremely difficult. And here, instead of rook b3, Gukesh had to play rook b6 and try to go back to f6. He's play rook b6. He didn't like that. I guess he didn't like how that looked. He didn't like, I don't know what he didn't like. Maybe he thought like you could sack. So maybe he thought 3 pawns and a bishop are probably losing. As it turns out, this is a draw, which is insane. You put your king on g4. What? You get your king active. And the point is that it's too many pawns. Rook a6, apparently this is a draw, which looks insane. But white can't make progress. Because king g5, and you create a fortress, and white can't advance. King d5, you give checks. King d4, you give a check. King e3, you give a check. If the king goes back, now the king's cut off. Now the king's never going to join the pawns. Which is, you play rook a5. Like, apparently, yeah, Gukesh doesn't find that, and Anish gets the king to the magic square. Once he's gonna win the third pawn, it's just game over. And Anish Giri has he's got 3.5 points. Anish Giri, after 4 rounds of Tata Steel, has 3.5 out of 4. Ali Reza's got 3. He made a quick draw against Nodjibek. Nodjibek has had a very, very calm event, but he had that insane game against Parham yesterday. And our standings in the challengers. That's the same thing. Oops. Why is that's no. Here are your standings in the challengers. Erwin Lamy, Hans Niemann, Anton Korobov, all tied for first with 3 points. Elina, who is the strong Dutch junior player, unfortunately has 0 points. She has yet to get on the board. She's had a rough event thus far. Hopefully she improves. There's no easy matchups there. And Parham Maksudlu, shocking. 0.5 out of 4. Danchenko, Ju Wenjun tied with 1. But still many more rounds to go. Pragnananda takes down Ding Liren. He is the Indian #1. Tomorrow is a rest day. Get out of here.